a short time in God's Word. Today, April 23rd, 2024, we are in 2 Samuel chapter 6. It's one of those interesting chapters. And as you read it, you'll see. What do we have here? We have David, and there's going to be this big celebration that goes on. But before the celebration, before the ark is brought in, there's death. Verse 6 of 2 Samuel chapter 6. When they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the ark of God. And David was angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah, and that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. The breaking out against Uzzah. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David was not willing to take the ark of the Lord into the city of David, but David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite, and the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Like, that's serious. Like, what's the deal? Well, what it is they were operating according to their own way, and God had a way in a system of how the ark was to be moved and transported. And so you might think, well, that's just nitpicky, that's just ridiculous. Why would God do such a thing? Because he was teaching them, and he was demonstrating to them, even through the act that Uzzah dies as a result of him trying to protect the ark, that there's a way to worship, and that there's a pattern that he wanted them to follow. Not because he was nitpicky, but because it was about holiness, being set apart, and then responding to that holy God. And that was played out in how they even carried the ark. It was supposed to be on poles, and so they weren't having it on a cart like that, so there wouldn't be the issue of it tipping over. And so David's reaction is probably pretty natural when you think about it, right? He was afraid of God. And so he doesn't bring the ark into the city. He's like, I can't do that. This is not good. But what he is missing is he didn't do what God asked them to do. And so the blessing of God is upon this Obed-Edom and his household. And David is then going to hear about it after 3 months. Verse 16 or 12. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. When those who bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, he sacrificed an ox and a fattened animal. And David danced before the Lord with all his might. And David was wearing a linen ephod. David and all his house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, with the sound of the horn. So he sees God blessing this house, this family. He says, okay, we need to take that next step. We need not to be afraid. We need to rejoice. And so he goes through the proper steps, and there's just an abandonment to God. That's what you see in David. And he doesn't care, right? He's about worship, about serving God. And he knows what it costs to do it your way. And he understands the holiness of God, being set apart. And so the representation of God coming in to the city in the Ark of the Covenant, he's thrilled beyond belief, and he's worshiping. Well, not everyone thinks that's a good thing. And so it says here in verse 16, as the Ark of the Lord came to the city of David, Michal, or the daughter of Saul, looking out the window, saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And so we go down to verse 20, and she says, how the king of Israel honored himself today, uncovering himself today before the eyes of his servants, female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself. She was saying, look, you put it on a show. Great, good job. It's disgusting. And it doesn't tell us he was entirely naked, but the whole point is she had reviling in her heart towards David for him worshiping the Lord. And so David says, verse 21, it was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me as prince over Israel, the people of the Lord, and I will celebrate before the Lord. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes. But by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. Again, harsh. But what is being demonstrated in and to us as we, many years removed from this, think back and read through stories like this, the principle, what's there for us, right? Because otherwise it's just history and you go, oh, that's pretty crazy. God's into being set apart. He wants his people to be set apart. We all worship. So who are you going to worship? Yourself or God? And at what point do you say, well, I don't want everyone to know, so no. He doesn't care who knows. He doesn't care who sees. He's going to worship God. And he was able to rebuke his wife in that sense. And consequence for her, well, it seems to be that she has no kids of her own. It seems harsh. Yeah, perhaps. Worship is more than a moment. It's more than what you do in private. It's your life lived before the Lord, and you're open to it regardless of who's around. You're not embarrassed, right? And so maybe it's praying at a restaurant. You're like, yeah, we don't do that. Why? Well, because we're at a restaurant. Or maybe, right, like there's, like, where's the line? And I think the heart of God is 24/7. Every day that ends with why, we're to worship and serve the Lord with all that we have. We are set apart unto him to be holy as he is holy. Till next time, keep growing little by little.